venerable deeds. When thou dost comment, it is then that we stand. So do call to arise to thy call to give all. So do call to arise to thy call to give all. Give, O good Michael, thy blessing do give. This life is laid down so that others may live. The spirit is willing, all flesh is but weak. With thee is found courage, us soldiers to seek. With thee is found courage, us soldiers to seek. And within the heavens a priest dost thou meet. Thy angels I pray to go to thee to greet. Far above times endureth, and light shineth through. And the soul that transcends finds the holy and true. And the soul that transcends finds the holy and true. A warrior is sent without choosing a seat. His presence shall take, not his venerable deeds. When thou dost comment, it is then that we stand. So do call to arise to thy call to give all. So do call to arise to thy call to give all. Thy glory is grandeur, thy light pierces fog. Thou raisest such smallness through fights that appalled. Yet trial by fire and eternity calls. Thou givest thy courage that we will give all. Thou givest thy courage that we will give all. We've dwelt but a moment in youthfulness done. Life's joys are like lightning, then tempest and storm. As gold is in fire, a purity born. This soul they commend for thy service as sworn. This soul they commend for thy service as sworn. A warrior is sent without choosing a seat. His presence shall take, not his venerable deeds. When thou dost comment, it is then that we stand. So do call to arise to thy call to give all. So do call to arise to thy call to give With honor we end our time sealed with a key. The cost as an axe that does sever the tree. We sacrificed much for the cross is the way. Yet more was asked from me, that more did I pay. Yet more was asked from me, that more did I pay. They sent death to my brothers, with heroes I've stood. The gold of our country in fire as wood. When death came to strike them, my life I might save. Yet I've chosen the cross, 'tis the mark of the brave. Yet I've chosen the cross, 'tis the mark of the brave. A warrior is sent with Now, Saint Michael, I pray to go to thee to greet, for upon his same day the last price did I pay. On his wings my prayer lifted to the life and the way. On his wings my prayer lifted to the life and the way. A warrior is sent without choosing a seat. His presence shall take, not his venerable deed. When none of torment, it is then that we stand. So to call to arise, to thy call to give all. So to call to arise, to thy call to give all. A warrior is sent without choosing a seat. His presence shall take, not his venerable deed. When none of torment, it is then that we stand. So to call to arise, to thy call to give all. So to call to arise, to thy call to give all. Blessed urban called the crusade, for the land of the Christians are pillaged and razed. For Saracens made it a goal to subdue. The cross of Christ falls glorious and true. And behold, there was found a man, a Godfrey Bullion, who would retake the land, where Christ the Lord was bound by his hands, and a traitor would hang himself over the sands. For now a good Christian, for this you were born, take heart full of courage and brave every storm. So to safeguard the land where the God man did dwell, who by death on the cross broke the kingdom of The crusading armies passed over the land, through tempests and flashes, through canyons so grand, such numerous dangers of battles to death, for heavens came heeding the vigorous request. As thunder the drums of the armies resound, as banners of nobles fly high from the ground, the rumble of horsemen in numerous file, the glint of their armor be seen for a mile. For now, good Christian, for this you were born, take heart full of courage and brave every storm. So to safeguard the land where the God man did dwell, who by death on the cross broke the kingdom of hell. Thus castle by castle be conquered in time, till lastly was seen, O Jerusalem shine. At last then Duke Godfrey gave order to siege, the greatest of hardships to accomplish indeed. born and was slain. For now a good Christian born is you were born. Take heart, full of courage, and brave every storm. So to save our land where the God-man did dwell, who by death on the cross broke the king of the hell. For now a good Christian born is you were born. Take heart, full of courage, and brave every storm. So to save our land where the God-man did dwell, who by death on the cross broke the king of the hell. For now a good Christian born is you were born. Take heart, full of courage, and brave every storm. So to save our land where the God-man did dwell, who by death on the cross broke the king of the hell.
Welcome to your Catholic Drive Time, keeping you informed and inspired.
We love God, we ought to be able to talk about Him.
Getting you started on your day.
With the latest in breaking news and information.
From the Vatican to the White House and everything in between.
It's serious, it's fun, it's your Catholic Drive Time.
Now here's your host, Joe McClain.
Praise be to Jesus Christ. Welcome back to Catholic Drive Time, keeping you informed and inspired. I'm your host, Joe McClain. So good to be on with you on this Friday, November the 18th, 2022. On the feast day of Saint Rose, Philippine, Duchesne. Praise be to God. Pray for us, Saint Rose, Philippine, Duchesne. Hey, did we just avoid World War III? I'm kind of feeling like we did, actually. it felt like that we were all on the precipice of going to war with that missile strike in Poland. We've invited Colonel Matt Dooley on, retired Army Colonel Matt Dooley, to be on with us at 15 past the hour to kind of weigh in on that. Did we just by the skin of our teeth? We're going to find out what he has to say coming up. Also at 35 past the hour, did you know Greta Thunberg has a book out? Oh, yeah. She's got a book out. She's making some money. She hates capitalism, but nonetheless, she's making a lot of money with her book sales. And Mr. John Horvat is going to be on. He's got an article over at the Imaginative Conservative, and we're going to have a conversation around Greta Thunberg. She's 19 years old. Like, just yesterday, she was... How old was she when she did the whole UN...
Wasn't that just a year ago?
How dare you?
Yeah, how long ago was that? It was like 5, 6 years.
It feels like a long time.
It feels like a long time. She's 19. Like,
she's
wow.
19.
And she got a book deal. Nice.
And she got a book deal and world speaking. And
Why don't I have
nonetheless,
a book deal?
I don't know.
Hey, somebody, anybody listening out there, offer me a book deal.
Offer him a
Self-publish.
book deal. Yeah, exactly. Dave Palmer is going to be our guest at the top of the next hour. He's going to talk about St. Thomas Aquinas and being thankful, apparently. Whatever that means. Hey, here's a lot of stories in the news. The Massachusetts Department of Public Health, guess what they did? They got together with Google and they covertly installed on over 1 million Android phones tracking software for COVID-19 for contact tracing.
Neat.
So that's just the 1 million they admitted to. So there's just that. But hey, U.S. bishops have decided to put off rewriting the voter guide until after the 2024 elections. Very convenient.
Seems wise.
Very convenient. The House GOP announces investigations into Hunter Biden and an audit into Ukraine spending, all while Nancy Pelosi steps down as top Democrat. So a lot of activity already in the U.S. House. And guess what? The University of Notre Dame has imposed COVID-19 booster shot mandates on all students, even if you never set foot on their campus and you are just remotely connecting via Zoom or something like that. For the next school year, everybody, no matter what, has to get the shot. That's a good time. Good morning to you, Rudy Carlos.
Good morning, Joe. And I, for one, I'm going to get my 11th booster.
Your 11th?
Yep.
You, sir, are a patriot. I mean, for the team.
See, I got the first one on one arm, and then every subsequent dose, I've had them on both arms at the same time. So I'm completely covered.
I can tell.
I haven't had COVID since 2 months ago.
Since at least the last time you had it. Oh, man. It just, it's like we're 2 years past the pandemic and they're still requiring
It's never over.
It's never over.
Hey, who were we talking to the other day that said there's public health crises that are still active since the 70s?
Public health crises?
Crises?
Yeah. I don't know.
This one's going to go on forever.
Is it?
It's a money-making scheme.
You know what's not going to go on forever? The fact that we have peaked as a team.
Really?
Wow.
We peaked.
As a team.
I don't know what else we can accomplish, to be honest with you.
There's no I in team.
Dr. Anthony Stein not only gave us a mention, but played a clip of ours.
Wow.
In his most recent video on Return to Tradition. I can't thank you enough. That is a high honor. I consider that a very high honor. I don't know that he's ever done. Has he ever done that? I don't think he's ever done that. Played a clip of someone else's show. Ever.
We'll have to ask him.
So
Anthony is a good friend, and actually tune into Anthony's show tomorrow. I'm going to be a guest on his show to talk about Advent as a season of penance. Ooh, have you heard that before?
Return to Tradition.
Wait, what?
Thank you. Thank you for giving us a shout out. I do appreciate that very much. All right, praise be to God. We have much to get into today. I hope and pray that you will join us for the whole hour and share us with a friend. Don't forget, I'm sending the CDT Insider email out today. So if you want to be on the inside, go to grnonline.com/CDT to get in on the action. Just look for the CDT Insider email link and you can get signed up. Takes just a couple of minutes. But let's pray. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, amen. Remember, O most gracious Virgin Mary, that never was it known that anyone who fled to thy protection, implored thy help, or sought thine intercession was left unaided. Inspired by this confidence, I fly unto thee, O Virgin of Virgins, my mother. To thee do I come, before thee I stand sinful and sorrowful. O Mother of the Word incarnate, despise not my petitions, but in thy mercy hear and answer me. Amen. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Now your headlines with Rudy Carlos.
Good morning. Thanks for tuning into Catholic Drive Time. Today's Friday, November 18th. And here are your headlines this morning. Breitbart reports Nancy Pelosi steps aside and will not seek re-election as Democrat House Leader. She says, quote, "This I will continue to do as a member of the House, speaking for the people of San Francisco, serving the great state of California, and defending our Constitution. And with great confidence in our caucus, I will not seek re-election to Democratic leadership in the next Congress," Pelosi stated on the House floor. She also added, "The hour has come for a new generation to lead the Democratic caucus that I greatly respect." Sky News reports Chinese tech firm Nexperia told to sell majority stake in UK microchip factory over national security risk. The British government has said Nexperia must reduce its stake in Newport wafer fabrication by 86%, back to its previous holding of just 14% when it took over the firm in 2021, in an effort to mitigate the risk to national security. The former chair of the Commons Foreign Affairs Committee had expressed concern that companies, particularly in China, had a track record of using foreign investments to gain access to important technologies and information. The Epoch Times reports inflation outpacing U.S. wages, creating worst pay drop in 25 years. Residents in the United States have less to celebrate on payday as inflation-adjusted wages endure the harshest pay cut in a quarter century, according to the Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas. The bank's report revealed the median decline in real wages was a little more than 8.5% for most of the workforce in the last 12 months. CNA reports the church in Cuba will once again have communion hosts thanks to donations of flour. In a November 14th statement, the Descalce Carmelite Sisters of Havana expressed their joy for having experienced once again that the bark of the church is the Lord who leads it. The nuns expressed their surprise to see that the news of the flour shortages had gone viral, even reaching remote places, saying, quote, "The impressive thing about all of this is how it has moved the hearts of so many people of goodwill, who, like the widow in the gospel, have offered little or much so that the work can continue," unquote. Flour has come to us from our simple townspeople, from institutions from Miami, Puerto Rico, Spain, and also the allocation that we get from the state, they reported. And those were your headline news this morning. God love you.
The saint of the day is Saint Otto, or Otto, I suppose, of Cluny. Saint Otto was born in 879. He was the son of noble parents who lived in the Alsace, France. They attributed his birth to the miraculous intercession of Saint Martin of Tours. At the age of 16, he became a canon of the Church of Saint Martin in Tours, and he dedicated some years of his life to the study of classic authors and the fathers of the Church. In 901, he traveled to Paris to follow a course of philosophy by Remy of Auxerre. He also studied poetry and music, both of which he wrote and practiced throughout his life. After writing several works, Otto entered the Benedictine monastery of Baume-les-Moussuets in Burgundy, my French is excellent, where he was headmaster of the monastery school. When the monastery of Cluny was founded, he moved to it with its first abbot, Saint Bruno. In 927, he succeeded Bruno as the second abbot of Cluny. The monastery schools he founded in Cluny shortly attracted the noblest and the brightest youth in the West. It became a custom to say that a prince at his parents' court would not receive a better formation than the pupils of Cluny. Thanks to this holy abbot, the influence of Cluny spread out all over Christendom. Popes would ask St. Otto's advice in their difficulties, and princes invited him to their kingdom to reform their monasteries. He was so successful that he was called the restorer of monasteries. He died on November 18th, 942. When he was a child, the Angelus bells rings, and all stop what they were doing and stand and pay homage to Our Lady. Then the life continues. In an atmosphere like this, St. Otto was raised. You see that it's quite different from that of the skyscrapers and busy streets to which many of us are accustomed. So after studying philosophy, poetry, and music, after serving and governing in Baume-les-Moussuets, St. Otto became one of the founders of Cluny. That is, we find him at the very root of the best that the Catholic Church gave in that era. The schools he founded at Cluny attracted persons of the best families in Europe. Some progressivists hate this apostolate with children of good families. They argue that one must make apostolate with the poor, not with the elites of society. It is hard to imagine such blindness. If you want to do good for everyone, you should take special care to do so with those who, in their turn, can pass on that goodness to others. Let us ask St. Otto to intercede with Our Lady to bring the reign of Mary soon for the greatest glory of God. That's commentary from Professor Pliny on the feast of St. Otto. St. Otto of Cluny, pray for us.
Praise be to God in all things. The gospel today comes to us from Luke chapter 19, verses 45 through 48. Jesus entered the temple area and proceeded to drive out those who were selling things, saying to them, "It is written, 'My house shall be a house of prayer,' but you have made it a den of thieves." And every day he was teaching in the temple area. The chief priests, the scribes, and the leaders of the people, meanwhile, were seeking to put him to death, but they could find no way to accomplish their purpose, because all the people were hanging on his words. The Gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ. Adrian, did Cornelius a Lapide have anything to offer today?
Oh, did he? He had a lot to offer on today's scripture passage. He says here, "Wherefore it is not doubtful that Christ gave thanks in the temple of God the Father, because he had manifested to him to the whole city as Messiah. Yea, had glorified him by the applause of all the people." Again, the first care of Jesus as pontiff and Messiah was of the temple. When entering the city, he came to that first, that he might teach us to do the same. So he's saying, when you enter a city, it was custom up until today that when you entered a new city, the first thing you would do is go to a church and give thanks to God for allowing you to come to that city safely. He said there's two reasons why he drove the people out of the temple. He said the first is because it was not seemly that those things should be sold in the temple, but in the marketplace. For the temple is a house of prayer, not of merchandise, as Christ says. The second was the avarice and usury of the priest. He's charging money. That's very interesting, and he talks about more about the sin of simony, of selling religious goods, of selling things like relics, selling things like religious items. These kinds of things are very, very dangerous, and priests should not be doing it. Now, there's a nuance there that I won't get into at the moment. However, tropologically, hopefully one day, St. Cornelius a Lapide says the temple is a house not for talk, nor speculation, nor drinking, nor reveling, but for prayer. Let therefore those who profane it by gossiping, by gaping about them, by acting lasciviously, by drinking, see how they will be scourged by Christ. That is a hard saying. St. Cornelius a Lapide here is talking about the fact that people talk in church. That the church is not a place for talking. It's not a place for eating, bringing your food, bringing your drinks into the church. No, the temple, the church, is a house of prayer. He says, for St. Bede says, those things might seem to be lawfully sold in the temple, which were brought with the intention of offering them in the same temple to the Lord, but the Lord himself being unwilling that any earthly business, not even that which was considered honest, should be transacted in his house. That means everything has a time and a place. Even good things should not be done in the church, because the church has a particular end to it. So let's keep that end in mind when we're at the church. Last thing, this is a hotly debated topic about how many times did our Lord drive the people out of the temple. Cornelius a Lapide says there was at least 2 times recorded in Scripture, at the beginning of his ministry and at the end of his ministry. And however, though, he says it was likely that he did it many times, and that people, whenever he'd see Jesus coming toward the temple, they're like, "Oh no, he's back! He's about to drive everyone out again. He's got the whip in his hand. Run!" And so keep that in mind. Our Lord made that reaction on multiple occasions.
Yeah, praise be to God. All right. Thank you, Cornelius a Lapide, for your insight on today's gospel. Hey, we're going to go to break. We're going to come back. Retired Army Colonel Matt Dooley is going to be on. We're going to talk about that missile strike in Poland, all that and more.
Atheists claim they don't need God to be a good person, implying God's not relevant to morality. But is this true? Well, atheists can be good in the sense of knowing behaviors that respect the goods of human nature and living accordingly. St. Paul acknowledges this natural moral law in Romans chapter 2. But this doesn't mean God is irrelevant when it comes to morality. And here's the reason. Besides God's grace being necessary to live the moral law perfectly and merit heaven, God is necessary for the law to be morally binding. How can the moral law be binding if there's no moral lawgiver behind it that surpasses human authority? The answer is it can't. So an atheist can follow the natural moral law, but only the theist is consistent in saying that such a law is morally obligatory. I'm Carlo Broussard with the ready reason for Catholic Answers, Catholic.com.
So many of us carry such heavy burdens.
You're crazy!
Deep within, we struggle.
Come on, babe. It'll be fun.
Because sin separates us from God.
She's having a relationship with George.
But thanks to the grace of confession, God compassionately listens, forgives, and sets us free. So if it's been a while since you've been to confession or Mass, come home and experience a fresh start. Visit CatholicsComeHome.org.
Praise be to Jesus Christ. Welcome back to Catholic Drive Time, keeping you informed and inspired. I'm your host, Joe McClain. So good to be on with you. Praise be to God. Coming up at 35 past the hour, Mr. John Horvat is going to be our guest. He has an article over at the Imaginative Conservative. Headline says, Greta Thunberg turns left and red. We're going to be talking about Greta Thunberg's new book and, the fact that she seems to be turning towards socialism, Marxism. We're going to get Mr. Horvat's comments on that at 35 past the hour. Do join us if you can. Joining us right now via Zoom chat is retired Army Colonel Matt Dooley, and it's good to have him back on the program. Good morning to you, Matt.
Yeah, good morning. Thanks for having me.
We appreciate you having you on today. Of course, the story this week was, I thought it was actually quite intense and quite hair-raising. There was the missile strike on a village in Poland along the border to Ukraine. And the initial story was this was a Russian missile, and NATO forces were gathering and meeting to discuss what they should do about it. There was some back and forth about who was responsible. And eventually, the president of Poland admitted that this was not a Russian missile. Can you give us your insight into this whole affair?
Yeah. Well, first of all, we'll frame the discussion by why it matters. Since February of last year, February of this year, with Russia's invasion of Ukraine, the concern has always been about escalation. It's critical to those who were former members of the Warsaw Pact who are now members of NATO. Countries like Poland, the Baltic republics, Hungary, they're concerned about Russian aggression, which is the predominant reason why they petitioned to be members of NATO to begin with. So this idea of an Eastern country like Russia attacking them is a concern. But then you have this conflagration in Ukraine and the concerns about spillover. And Poland has always seen itself as the next logical target. So there's credibility already in concern. So when you have an incident like this, the danger of cascading and escalating into something unintentionally is very real. And you add that this tendency of Vladimir Putin now that his army's not doing so well to strike civilian targets. And he's been doing this for months, going after the electrical grid in Ukraine, hitting apartment complexes and going after infrastructure. So there's this established credibility that if there's a civilian target that's struck in Ukraine, it's not that much of a cascade slide to strike a civilian target in Poland. So enter this scene where you have cruise missiles launched at civilian targets inside Ukraine, one of them 35 kilometers away from the Polish border. The Ukrainian Air Defense Network is trying to knock these cruise missiles down, and an S-300 missile is launched, misses the target, but then what goes up must come down. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, this S-300 plunged into a Polish village just on the other side of the border and killed 2 people. That's what happened. Those are the facts. So then the question becomes, where did this missile come from? And fortunately, for the forensics, we're able to see components that when something lands on the ground and explodes, it doesn't vaporize. There are pieces and parts that you can look at and confirm that, okay, this was an S-300 missile, or no, this is a Caliber cruise missile, or whatever. And then you can find something that may have a serial number on it, a lot number that makes it traceable back to when the missile was produced, which gives you some sense of who it belonged to. That's how we were able to find out that this was a Ukrainian air defense missile and not a deliberate Russian attack on a Polish target.
Now, President Zelensky from Ukraine, he's doubled down. He kept reporting, even though President Biden contradicted this information, and even I think the Polish president contradicted this information, and still President Zelensky claimed that this was a Russian missile, which I think this is the hair-raising part, in my opinion. If the narrative had continued that this was a Russian missile, we could have seen a World War III in reality, not just one on the books or one in theory, but one in reality where NATO forces are gathering. They talked about Article 5. Can you tell us what Article 5 is?
Yeah, I want to talk about Article 5, but I got to talk about Article 4 first.
Okay.
So Article 4 is invoked when one of our NATO members feels threatened. Any one of us, the United States can, Poland can, the United Kingdom can. Article 4 is, I've got some concerns. I feel threatened. I want everybody to muster, and we're going to talk about the problem and what to do about it should this escalate. Article 4 has been invoked numerous times. Turkey did it because they were concerned about spillover from the Syrian conflict getting across their border. And then most recently with the Russian invasion, those Eastern countries invoked Article 4 to talk about what should happen if the Russian-Ukraine fight escalates. So that's where we were headed when after this missile strike took place, was this conversation of, okay, we got to gather and figure out what's going to happen next. Article 5 is invoked if one of us is attacked. Article 5 was most recently invoked with the 9/11 attacks on the United States, which got other members to come in on our side. And in theory, if Poland had been deliberately targeted, then you have a case to be made that, hey, we've been attacked. Everyone else must step up, go shoulder to shoulder with us and protect us. That's what would lead to an escalation. The conversation that would occur with Article 4 is, this has happened. Does it amount to the threshold that we would consider invoking Article 5? I think if you had multiple targets struck that looked very deliberately like Russia was going after infrastructure inside Poland or going after military targets, you have a very strong case for invocation of Article 5. If this is an accident, an incident, an errant missile that just hit someone's outhouse, then that doesn't meet the threshold. But you'd have to gather everybody together to have that conversation.
Am I overstating this? But it's just from an outsider's perspective, it looks like we were this close to seeing an escalation on a grand scale. And this, to take into consideration, already we've heard from the Russian side that they may use a nuclear option in this conflict if it comes down to it. That seems like a very scary proposal. It seemed like this could have been the next, the Cuban Missile Crisis. This could have been that. What do you see, retired Colonel Matt Dooley?
Yeah, I think that's a real concern, that because of miscalculation or misinterpretation of event, that things get out of our control, that there's a rapid cascade of strike and counterstrike, tit-for-tat exchange. That's clearly something all sides want to avoid because no one wins a nuclear exchange. Yeah. So to talk about using nuclear weapons, if you're Vladimir Putin, to intimidate others, to me is not useful because it gets everybody on a hair trigger and worried about what you're going to do next, which I think is probably his intent, because he doesn't have very many options and he has fewer every day. Candidly, the army that went to Ukraine this last February no longer exists. By conservative estimates, we think he's lost 100,000 soldiers, both killed and wounded. I personally think he's lost more than that. I think he's probably lost 100,000 dead and 50 to 60,000 wounded. Again, either way, when you look at the numbers and what he deployed and the initial 150,000 that went in, those guys aren't there anymore. And so behind them now you have 300,000-ish very untrained conscripts or reservists who are not as trained as they need to be. They're not motivated. They're not fighting very well. They don't want to be a part of this. And even if you could throw in another 1 million men, what are you going to arm them with? He's lost so much of his military, so many of his tanks and armored fighting vehicles and artillery, the ammunition to support it, the logistics and trucks. That stuff's all gone. So he doesn't really have too many options left. And that's the real concern if backed into a corner, what he's going to do next.
Well, one of the problems that I've continued to have with this issue is I don't trust the Zelensky government. I feel very conflicted about that. But so let's talk about government oversight now. I guess the United States has been sending in people to try to figure out what have they been doing with the munitions that we've been sending them. We're asking for another $30+ billion in Congress to send over there. I would like to see that go down quite a bit. And then, of course, we're hoping and praying that there'll be a truce, a peace. Like, can we put an end to this? How do you see the coming peace, hopefully, at some point in the near future, Colonel Matt Dooley?
Yeah, I think sending in auditors to trace where our weapons are going, I think that's a healthy accountability action, because at some point this war will end. What do I think that end of fighting looks like? Three things. Number one, as I said, Russia's army is starting to reshape. They're starting to dig in. 60 miles behind the current front line in an attempt to sort of stabilize defenses, because they have to. They're exhausted. They've culminated. They have no capacity for offensive maneuver anymore. And that's going to be the way it's going to be probably for the next 6 months for them. The Ukrainians and their army, they're not in much better shape. They were a much smaller force, and they've kind of taken it on the chin, but they fought very well. What do I think they have left for capacity for offensive maneuver? They've got a couple of uncommitted brigades, so I think you'll see localized counterattacks in an attempt to reestablish the borders as they were prior to February. Once you get to that point, I think you have the conditions set for negotiation. Both sides have to see it as in their best interest to end the status quo and to seek a negotiated solution. For all of their corruption, I do believe the Ukrainians have a right to national sovereignty. I do believe that they have a right under the Westphalian nation state to their own borders and their own territory. I think the West should be willing to guarantee that. I think that the Russians have a right to feel secure within their own borders. And so the end of this probably looks like a negotiated buffer zone and a guarantee that both sides are going to go to their neutral corners. And I don't think Ukraine will end up inside NATO, but I think their security will be guaranteed by the West. What happens to Vladimir Putin afterward, I think, is my next concern. He won't be killed for starting a war. He'll be killed by his own people for losing a war. And does that lead to a cascade of pulling apart? Does Russia break apart into 3 or 4 subsections of different countries? And then what does China do to exploit that? Those are my long-term concerns.
You know, it's interesting you bring that up because I do watch certain Russian YouTubers just to kind of get their opinion to see what they're saying. And it has been surprising to see that there's been a tremendous amount of pushback and criticism of Vladimir Putin and his government, his administration there by the Russian people. And what's interesting about that is Russians don't typically protest. This is not a thing that they do all that often. And when they do, it's localized and pushed back on by the officials quite heavily. So we are seeing an uptick in that voice. But again, can you give me a sense of your time? Last question, your time scale. When do you think? Can we expect a peace, a talk at least of peace within the next 6 months, a year? What are we looking at?
Yeah. I think you're starting to see the groundwork being laid now. There's a couple of things that have to happen. The ground has to freeze. So we're kind of at a tactical pause now. But once the ground freezes and we can return to maneuver, you'll see additional pressure as Ukraine continues to push its offensive to the east. And once we get closer to those original February borders, I think you'll see a greater likelihood that they sit down. I think by summertime, you're going to look at a probable peace negotiation probably by June.
All right, retired Colonel Matt Dooley, thanks for your input. We appreciate it. God bless you and God love you. Have a great day. Coming up after the break, Rudy Carlos and Mr. John Horvat. All that and more.
This is Dale Ahlquist with a Chesterton Minute. Have you ever noticed that most people think that rules apply to others but not to themselves? They always consider themselves to be the exception.
But what ends up happening is that everybody is an exception, and so the rules don't apply to anybody. The result is something worse than chaos. It's a loss of all the categories of respect and justice. G.K. Chesterton says that when the exception has become the rule, that is the worst of all possible tyrannies. When the cardinal, formerly known as Ratzinger, gave his final homily before the papal conclave, he said, "We are living under the tyranny of relativism." What is relativism? It's when there are no rules, only exceptions. The man about to become Pope was echoing Chesterton exactly. Want more than a minute? Chesterton.org.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. We're currently cruising at 39,000 feet. We'll turn that seatbelt sign off for you and let you move about the cabin. Looks like we're about 2 hours and 10 minutes from landing. Plenty of time for you to pray for vocations to the priesthood.
Wouldn't it be great if everyone prayed daily for priestly vocations? Why not start today? A friendly suggestion from Guadalupe Radio Network.
Welcome back to Catholic Drive Time, keeping you informed and inspired, and now more headlines. Ground News reports 3 men found guilty of murdering 298 people in Flight MH17 bombing. A Dutch court has found 3 men guilty of the murder of 298 people on board Flight MH17, which was shot down by a Russian surface-to-air missile when it was flying over eastern Ukraine in 2014. Breitbart reports Starbucks workers strike at more than 100 U.S. stores. The walkouts coincide with Starbucks' annual Red Cup Day, when the company gives out free reusable cups to customers who order a holiday drink. Workers say it's often one of the busiest days of the year. Workers say they're seeking better pay, more consistent schedules, and higher staffing levels in busy stores. Stores in 25 states plan to take part in the labor action, according to Starbucks Workers United, the group organizing the effort. Starbucks, which opposes the unionization effort, said it's aware of the walkouts and respects its employees' rights to lawfully protest. And Catholic News Agency reports Bishop Barron reconsecrates cemetery vandalized on Halloween. Bishop Barron of Rochester, Minnesota, has reconsecrated the diocese's Calvary Cemetery after one or more vandals damaged the grounds with obscene and satanic graffiti. Photos of the graffiti show vulgar messages and the words, "In Satan we trust." The vandals have not yet been identified. A video posted to Barron's YouTube channel shows him conducting the rite of reconsecrating a profane cemetery. It included praying the Litany of the Saints, a reading of Psalm 50, and the sprinkling of holy water across the grounds of the cemetery, especially those places where the deceased were profaned. And those were your headline news this morning. God love you.
Praise be to God in all things. Thank you, Rudy, for keeping us up to date. Don't forget to get in on the CDT Insider email list, where we send you, a list of goodies, things in your inbox every Friday afternoon. So do join the inside. Go to grnonline.com/CDT. And in exchange for allowing me to harass you in your email inbox once a week, I will send you a talk by Father Bill Casey, the Fathers of Mercy, on the state of the church. It's a powerful talk, 30 minutes. You're going to really be inspired by it. Where we're at, the difficulties we face, and where we are headed, you're going to want that. You'll get it immediately in your box just for signing up. Go to grnonline.com/CDT. I also send you clips of all the great interviews we've had all week long in the email every Friday. Again, grnonline.com/CDT. Joining us now via Zoom chat is Mr. John Horvat. He's got an article over at the Imaginative Conservative. The headline says, Greta Thunberg turns left and red. You might remember Greta from a few years ago. She was, I think, 16 at the time she went to the UN, if I'm not mistaken, and she gave that famous "How dare you" speech that the world blew up on, and then
how dare you?
You do that very well, actually. And then it's been all downhill since then, but she's got a book out. Mr. Horvat, good morning to you, sir.
Morning. How are you doing?
Praise be to God. We are alive, and that counts. How are you?
Very well. Thank you.
Good. We're glad for your time today. Greta Thunberg's made quite a name for herself as such a young woman, and she's released a book. Tell us what this is all about.
Yeah, the book has not a very imaginative title. It's called The Climate Book, The Facts and Solutions. and it just came out a couple weeks ago, and it had a pretty big launching at the in London at the, I think it's called the Royal Festival Hall, late October, and of course, because it's Greta Thunberg, it's getting a lot of publicity, and just one of the high quality book, a lot of pictures. The funny thing is, she didn't write it. She just sort of stitched it together. It's a collection of 100 authors who comment on climate, and it's being presented as her book.
I think a lot of people have felt that Greta has been used by the left and the climate activists as a poster child for their cause. Is this something that let me ask you a question. Do you feel that she is sincere about her beliefs in her take on the climate issue, or do you think she is riding the wave?
I think she is. I think she definitely has those ideas and those ways of thinking. I don't think she does so much to say she's used is a bit naive. She does have that hatred for for the whole Western system, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And I think we need to emphasize that she doesn't have any religious background as such, and so there's nothing to fill in. There's an emptiness there, and that emptiness often gets filled in by these very hard and leftist ideologies.
Mr. Horvat, the reason why I think Greta Thunberg is important, because many people will say, oh, what do you care? She's just a kid, and now she's 19, so I guess she's not technically a kid anymore, but she's just a kid. Why do people care? Why do we talk about her? And I think the reason is because she's symbolic of the wider trend among young people today. And to Joe's question, I think that a lot of people her age, and I guess my age too, are sincere believers that the climate is going to, the sun monster is going to destroy the earth. And so we got to do anything and everything possible to fix it. And so they're willing to have these ideas. What say you? What is the RCR idea of the revolution, counter-revolution idea of why Greta Thunberg is important?
Right, because we are rational beings, but we also are very sensitive to seeing things, concrete things. And so the symbol is very important. Symbolic things are extremely important. They make visible that which is invisible. A symbol does that. And so symbolic people are very important for these revolutionary processes to go ahead, because they make it very concise and very succinct, just concretization of these ideas. And they also provide sort of Greta is kind of like a standard bearer that takes the standard forward in a battle. And not everybody will go and follow her, but they're all drawn to that. It draws everybody toward the leftist cause.
But she's 19. How much could she actually know about the environment?
She probably knows just as much as we do. Reading, writing, looking at what's happening. I don't think she's a scientist. I don't think she's a rocket scientist. She certainly doesn't have the intellectual abilities that I think that would know the technical aspects. But she knows enough to convey the idea and emotion. Of course, emotion is also very important in this battle.
And that seems to be the biggest issue of all. She has very successfully created an emotional response with her key moment, her 15 minutes or claim to fame, which was at the United Nations, the "How dare you" speech. And from that, she's got everything else. So, but what I found interesting about your article was she seems to be turning very much in line with socialist Marxist ideology. Very interesting, tagging into a conversation we had earlier this week with Dr. Paul Kengor, the author of a brand new book, The Devil and Bella Dodd. And looking at research, that's a great book. We're having him on next week again as a follow-up. But nonetheless, looking at the techniques that the Communist Party, the Comintern, back in the 1930s, 1940s, was using to infiltrate labor unions, the teachers' unions, to Protestant seminaries, Catholic seminaries, organizations, and other parts of our country all across the United States. There's the same languages here, the same tools, the same techniques, same ideology seems to be here. Is Greta Thunberg a socialist?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, she's using the same narrative and the same philosophical background of class struggle, of dialectics. And so it's a seamless transition from the earth fight, the ecological fight, to the political fight. And so it's not surprising. I'm sure I don't know her positions on LGBTQ topics, but I suspect they'll also be right in line with the whole thing, because there is a unity in this revolution that includes all the manifestations of it, and she definitely has that. She definitely will follow that unity.
We have about 2 minutes before we have to go to a break, but one thing that this kind of sparks my mind is Greta Thunberg being symbolic of this climate movement. We've seen repeated attacks on works of art. Now, granted, a lot of these artworks were kind of not great pieces of art to begin with. However, just the symbolic nature of attacking art is interesting to me. What do you think about that aspect of the, I guess, the environmental revolution?
Well, definitely. It is something very highly. It is also symbolic, because they are picking out different pieces of art that are famous, that are part of the establishment world, and they're saying, "Well, we want to overthrow this. We want to deface it." So yes, it's definitely a part of this whole movement. And these kind of radical things, they attract a certain type of person. And people say, look, these people are acting, they're radical, they're consistent, let's follow. So these types of acts are very much in the line of leftist thought, leftist action.
In 1 minute, what do you think is the proper punishment for that kind of crime?
Well, I mean, definitely, if the normal laws on the books should be applied to them. They should be booked. They should be jailed. They should, this is defacing something that's famous. Everybody loves these World Heritage sites and all these very symbolic places. Well, they're doing exactly the same things to very established works of art.
Hold that thought.
Vandalism, and it is a crime.
Mr. John Horvat is our guest. We're talking about Greta Thunberg. He's got an article over at the Imaginative Conservative, which you can find linked up at the imaginativeconservative.org. But we're going to continue this conversation. And the errors of Russia shall spread across the world. All that and more coming up next.
I've been listening to Guadalupe Radio for a couple years now, and I think it was a bumper sticker I saw on somebody's car one time, and it's a radio station that I don't have to be concerned about or worried about. When the kids and I are driving, I don't have to worry about inappropriate items. It's just the opposite. It's educational. I've learned so many different topics and on different subjects that I couldn't believe, being a Catholic and being baptized as a child. There's so many things I didn't know, and now in these past couple years that I've been listening in, I've learned so much.
Hello, this is Steve Gleason with your 1-minute tool for Catholic evangelism. Here's the question for your non-Catholic friend. If Jesus brought 2 of the greatest Old Testament saints to meet with 3 of the greatest New Testament saints at the Mount of Transfiguration, can you say with any assurance that they were not alive, aware, and able to communicate? So here's your 3 best friendship tools for Catholic evangelism. Number 1, the Bible. Luke 9 says, quote, 2 men, Moses and Elijah, appeared in glorious splendor talking with Jesus. Did you catch that? They were talking with Jesus. That means they have cognitive capability. Secondly, heavenly friends. Those in heaven long for your prayer requests. Their intercession far exceeds your best friend's prayers here on earth. Sorry to say that. And thirdly, a pesky comeback. Well, Oral Roberts University has the prayer tower. TBN has a prayer department. Your home church probably has a prayer hotline. Well, guess what? Heaven has on-demand, pure, unselfish prayer warriors known as the Great Cloud of Witnesses. They're waiting on you.
Be to Jesus Christ. Welcome back to Catholic Drive Time, keeping you informed and inspired. I'm your host, Joe McClain. So good to be on with you. Coming up at the top of the next hour, Dave Palmer, host of Back to the Father, is back on with us today. He's going to be talking about St. Thomas Aquinas and being thankful, Thanksgiving. Join us in the next hour if you can. But with us right now is Mr. John Horvat. He's got an article called Greta Thunberg Turns Left and Red at the Imaginative Conservative. TheImaginativeConservative.org is the website. Welcome back to the show, Mr. Horvat.
Great to be on. I
want to tag back into something you mentioned in the last segment, and it does seem to be an all or nothing proposition when it comes to climate change. It's like you have to embrace the climate change, you have to embrace the LGBTQ ideologies, and all that comes with it. And it's a very globalist central thing. In fact, sort of in that same camp, I think it was yesterday, the UN is adopting the World Health Organization's vax passport mandate for the whole world for international travel. And all these governments are like, yeah, this is a great deal. Let's go along with it. But that is a scary thing, and it definitely has its roots in the eras of Russia shall spread, what Our Lady warned about in 1917. Can you speak to that, sir?
Yeah, definitely. When Our Lady appeared in Fatima in 1917, she did speak about the eras of Russia, and then it didn't quite make sense because at that time Russia was in turmoil and the communist revolution had not completely consolidated. But definitely, it definitely referred to communism and the leftist ideologies that would follow from communism. So, and it included and the communist revolution of Russia is a global revolution. It defines itself as a global revolution. Its desire is to spread throughout the world to worldwide domination, and that can include military, but it also include philosophical and moral. So I think we're still seeing those errors still throughout the world.
This is concerning for sure, because I think there are too many people in this world that are given over to emotional responses to whatever they may be considering. And I see Greta Thunberg in that category. I frankly see her as just someone who's being used. It's like one of our listeners, Mary, said she is sort of a Joan of Arc figure for the cause. And I think a lot of people are convinced by that, which is why they don't really review the news, read the news, or contemplate the news or the issues of our day. They just want to know what their favorite pop singer has to say about it, their favorite athlete has to say about it. There's a certain shallowness in the world that is, I find, alarming because, mob mentality, and my kids have to grow up in this environment. Can you speak to that as well? I mean, mankind seems to be too shallow anymore.
Definitely, especially with the cell phones and all the social media. It is a matter of seconds, not a matter of minutes, where you have that time to connect with people. And that is the advantage of symbols and symbolic people like Greta Thunberg, because she can say everything in simply an image or a soundbite. And in a sense, that explains why we need other figures like that, although they should be very profound and necessary. They shouldn't be like so shallow. But the saints that have existed throughout history are these symbolic figures for the Catholic Church.
Yeah,
they just by their simple appearance were able to cause enthusiasm for the faith. They were able to overcome obstacles, political obstacles that would take others, years to really to correspond. So yeah, it is a battle between symbolic figures.
Yeah, it's very interesting seeing the role of symbolism. It's kind of almost we're kind of almost allergic to symbols in a sense, because we talk about, our Lord is really truly present in the Eucharist. He's body, blood, soul, and divinity. It's not symbolic, and so we kind of have this mentality. But at the same time, there is an element of symbolism in everything, especially the sacraments. It points us to, like you were saying earlier, a greater reality. And speaking of this, we have these people who are attacking the works of art we mentioned a second ago. But the thing that was really fascinating to me, as I was immediately upset by the fact that they were doing this, but then at the same time, I saw the artwork that they were attacking. I was like thinking, why are they attacking the ugly artwork and not like the great works of art that are present in the same museums?
And are they just doing us a favor?
Right, exactly. And I was wondering about that. So what's your analysis of why they're attacking these particular artworks and it's trying to attack the artwork that's modernist in order to promote modernist ideas? That confused me, and I was trying to figure out, why do they do that? I don't understand.
Well, I think it would probably be because that modern art is supported by the liberal establishment, the very rich people. Normal people just don't like modern art, so you'd have to have a certain amount of prestige involved, so people would follow the modern art. So this is an attack against the establishment, the liberal establishment, the establishment in general. So they probably picked these particular pieces because those who follow it and love this art are their target. Actually, they're fellow liberals, they're fellow companions, they're useful idiots. The people who are a little bit farther back in the process, but they are nonetheless they're attacking them so they can go ahead in the process farther.
Let's go back to the climate issue for a second here. I'm trying to get Mark Mills on next week sometime, or maybe the week after, to talk about, why going electric, which we are mandating. California, other parts are mandating. The car industry has to go all electric by, what was the date? I think 2030, 2050, something like that. I can't remember, but I mean, this is a nightmare. Not only does it cost a tremendous amount of money and energy to create the batteries that can hold the electricity, but they're terribly inefficient. They bleed more energy, so it costs more. And then there's the human factor. Do we care about the Africans that are being asked to dig into the earth, and what happens to them? Their health is being affected because their waterways and their soils are being contaminated by these elements. And China owns most of those mines, and now we're cooperating with China in a much more significant way for this future. We can't actually produce the enough energy to go to an all-electric world because solar and other renewable sources can't keep pace. We would have to blanket our entire country in solar panels, and even then we would probably not, and we would have to live through brownouts and blackouts on a sort of a normal basis. And yet we're not allowed to really have that conversation, are we? Because we just must hate Mother Earth if we suggest that this is not the bright future we all want. What say you, Mr. Horvat?
Right, yeah, it's from a logical point of view and a common sense point of view, all these things don't make sense. They're not practical. But that is not the issue. I have a friend who says, the issue is never the issue. There's always something behind it. And in the ecological issue, it's not efficiency. It's not even, the earth. It is an attack against the West, against the Western way of thinking, the whole system that was based upon Christian civilization. That is the final target, and any manifestation, no matter how small, is fair game, and no matter how impractical.
I like how your article points out that although Greta is railing against capitalism and the capitalistic system that she loathes, she's happy to also benefit from it with her speaking tours. Her book now is out. It's probably going to become a bestseller. And she stands to make quite a bit of money on the capitalist system.
Yeah, she's definitely taking advantage of it. She says, of course, that the profits will go to the earth or whatever, some kind of charity, maybe a Greta Thunberg Foundation charity. But nonetheless, yeah, she is taking advantage of the system and has no problem doing that because for the left, the means justify the end. The end justifies the mean, and so she is saying, well, if they want to sell us the rope to hang them, that's fine. I'll take the rope.
Yeah, speaking of capitalism and this, like you're saying, hanging themselves by the rope, we just saw over the last week the FTX debacle. For those who don't know, the FTX is a cryptocurrency exchange, and it's kind of like a digital bank in a sense with I guess fake money, and they it's like hard to even try to explain in a simple way. And so they just went under in I think nearly $2 trillion collapsed, it disappeared of wealth. And this was a kind of a big deal because it affected a lot of people. Plus, the owner of FTX was donating millions of dollars to Democrat things.
Donor
right
ever.
after, who was it?
Bloomberg.
Right after Bloomberg or, something like that. What's your analysis of that, Mr. Horvat?
Well, I mean, cryptocurrency is not money. Money has to store value, has to be a means of exchange, and has to be a measure of value. And it mimics these functions that are part of money. And so, cryptocurrency is a very volatile unit of currency, between quotes. And it's bound to happen, especially when you have people like this that really are always wheeling and dealing behind the scenes and don't back up their cryptocurrency. So this is, I think, is something is huge. It's what took place over the last couple of months. I think the $2 trillion has been the total meltdown, not just FTX. FTX is around $8 billion, but that's still a lot of money for a lot of people. And it's contributing to this idea that, the cryptocurrency is melting down, and it's a lot of people are taken in by it. And they're taken in by the falsity of the situation. That it's really not money.
Yeah, and the scary thing is they're testing out the digital currency, which the Fed will then be able to control. It will not be a decentralized system like in crypto. And then on the heels, I was just looking at an article over at The Intercept. I think it was The Intercept, maybe in Human Events, but not either way. Right on the heels of a digital currency rolled out by the Fed, it was going to be social credit score, which has been in effect in China for years now. Australia has picked it up. Canada has been experimenting with it. And could we be next? It's possible that our activities in the world, our opinions may be held against us and our bank accounts freeze with a click of a mouse. It's a scary future. Last word, Mr. Horvat.
Yeah, definitely. And a monetary system is a very important part of any economy, any society. And who controls the money that does control the people to a certain extent, or at least the transactions that take place. And so, that with ESG, the other big system that's being put in place, these are definitely threats. There is actually a lot of reaction, but let's see what happens.
Pray, fast, and do penance. Live in a state of grace. That's the answer to all of our issues. But God love you, Mr. Horvat. Thank you for being on with us. We appreciate it. Check him out at theimaginativeconservative.org. That's going to do it for this hour. If you can join us in the second hour, we would love to have you. Go to grnonline.com/CDT.
Catholic radio was there for me when I needed it. Even though I didn't think I needed it, it was there for me. I want everybody to know that I'm giving, not so that I can sit there and say that I gave to GRN for any other reason but this. I want that radio station to be there for anyone else who needs it also. They may not think they need it, but it's going to be there for them, whether it's in the future, whether it's right now. I want that radio station to always be there for them, just like it was there for me.
The Guadalupe Radio Network. Radio for your soul.
This is a Messy Family Minute with Mike and Alicia Hernon. Sometimes it can seem that our family life is humdrum, monotonous, and insignificant. But Christ began his public ministry at the wedding at Cana. When we read this account in the gospel, we're reminded that our marriage, our ordinary family life, is important to God.
Our Lord and Our Lady love our families, and they are present with us. They desire to change what is ordinary into the extraordinary. The Lord can take our simple and everyday tasks and make them holy.
Like the servants at the wedding at Cana, we need to notice when we run out of wine, when we run out of joy, when we run out of love. It is then that we turn to Our Lady and ask for her help. She can bring Christ into our lives, our ordinary water, and transform it into wine.
And when we invite Christ into our lives to transform us, he creates the best wine of all. For more advice, ideas, and encouragement, visit us at messyfamilyproject.org.
Donnie, who was the first pope to whom Jesus said, "You are the rock upon which I will build my church"?
St. Peter.
And who is the current pope?
Pope Francis.
As parents, we're the primary educators of our Catholic faith to our children. And if you don't know your Catholic faith as well as you should, that's okay. Just tune in daily to the Guadalupe Radio Network by logging online to grnonline.com. The Guadalupe Radio Network. Listen, learn, love, and pass it on.
Are you on the CDT Insider email list? Hi, Joe McClain here. And every week I send you cool stuff straight to your inbox, goodies that you're not going to want to miss. Go to grnonline.com/CDT and get signed up today. Jesus Christ, welcome back to Catholic Drive Time, keeping you informed and inspired. I'm your host, Joe McClain. So good to be on with you. Praise be to God. Good morning. It's Friday. You survived it. You made it to the weekend. Congratulations. It's going to be a great weekend. Hey, I don't know if you remember, if you're at all of my vintage, let's just say north of 20. Okay. North of 40. Okay. You remember north AOL. Of 60. You remember AOL.
AOL, oh man, okay. They used to give out the floppy disks.
Man, I remember the first time I ever saw the internet, AOL. Like I had a friend from high school who had it on his computer.
It was a Compaq.
And no, he was
Hewlett Packard.
He was a geek. He was a nerd, a computer geek. So he had a huge computer. It probably had 8 megabytes of RAM or something like that. And he had AOL. I'm like, I got to see this. Can you show it to me? I've never seen it. I've heard people talking about it. And
you hear,
you've got mail. And I saw it for the first time. I'm like, whoa, this is the future. This is amazing. That was probably 1995 when I saw that. The reason why I bring it up is because good news, bad news.
Bad news.
Twitter's dying, apparently. It's trending on Twitter right now. That Twitter is dying. It's interesting how on Twitter, it is trending that Twitter is dying. The good news is we get AOL back out of the deal. We get to go back to the old chat groups. See, I remember the chat groups.
Oh, those are horrible.
Man, we used to be able to get in a chat group on AOL. And if you had sound files, like little... they might have been MIDI files. I don't even remember. On your computer, you could play them in the chat group, and so that's all everybody would do is just play their little sound files, and it'd be like a hot mess of echoing, sound files from everybody. And we'd play like clips of famous quotes, television shows, movies, things like that. It's great. It was good days. We're gonna go back to those days now that Twitter's dying. Well, what will you do with your life if Twitter dies? Like, what are you going to spend that extra time on?
I'm not on Twitter anymore, so...
What do you, like, at the moment you're not on Twitter, but like later you will be.
No, I deleted my Twitter account.
When you say deleted, you mean you logged out, but you're logging back in later.
I wish that I would have kept the things that I saved, because some of them were really funny. But nope, I'm gone.
The memes are great.
Yeah, the memes are amazing.
The meme game is pretty on point today with the RIP Twitter action. There's the fiddlers on the Titanic deck is a good one. I like that one. That was a good one. Then there's you remember I never watched it actually, but there was that television show Mad Men.
Yeah, I'm familiar with it. I didn't watch it either. Yeah.
Like from the 60s or 50s or something like that.
Yeah.
I never watched it, never seen a single episode, but I remember that it existed. They have a meme of that guy pitching ex-Twitter employees, pitching investors. It says literally just Twitter without Elon, and that'll be next week. So yeah, interesting. It'll be fascinating to see. I can't imagine why Elon would bring, what did he spend, $45 billion or something?
Let me look it up.
Like, why would he spend so much money only to crush it and kill it and shut it off? Why? Like, if you've got $45 billion to waste, can you give me a call first? Because I could think of a thing or two to do with that kind of money that might actually have a positive impact in the world.
$44 billion.
Yeah, $44 billion. Surely He's not.
That's not enough money.
He's not shutting Twitter off.
Don't call me Shirley.
I mean, do you think he would? I don't think he would. He can't. Who wastes $45 billion on that?
I would.
Well, they say that after, what is it, $125 million, that it's basically just nothing to you.
It's FTX money, you're saying?
It's just like, it's nonsense. You'll never be able to spend it. So maybe he thought, oh, well, I'll just waste some of my money.
He's going to take it as a tax write-off.
45.
He's going to donate it.
Billion. It wasn't all his money, though. He went in with partners. Yeah. I can't imagine. It is not going away. People, calm down. It's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. Speaking of which, speaking of
fine,
being thankful this morning, Dave Palmer, host of Back to the Fathers, on with us via Zoom, and I'm hearing myself in the background there, which means I get to hear myself twice, which is never a good thing. It's bad enough in the first time, worse in the second. Good morning to you, Dave Palmer.
Hey, good morning, Joe. I'm trying to get this worked out. I'm sorry about that. Hold on a second, okay?
What you need is $45 billion to invest in your platform there, Dave. And then we can crush it afterwards, and it'll be a good day, I suppose.
You know what's surprising about this conversation we're about to have, about being thankful, is that we're already basically done with the month of November. It's insane to me.
Can you imagine? Like, we just started November.
Exactly. It felt like it was just one day ago.
One day ago.
But here we are, halfway.
Thanksgiving is literally next week.
Joe, do you celebrate Thanksgiving?
Every single day.
Oh, my man.
If I'm on a purely carnivore diet, am I allowed to have mashed potatoes on Thanksgiving? Fundamental questions.
Well, you could always make an exception. I don't suggest it since you're so close to the end.
I can do mashed potatoes.
You want to run the race.
I could put butter and garlic and chives and honey.
Man, you better
and
go slow
salad,
when you get back there.
And what else can I dress up my mashed potatoes with? That if I'm going to make the exception, I might as well go all the way.
Dill.
Sugar.
Dill.
Pure sugar.
And
just
your mashed potatoes?
Dump a bag of sugar on top of my mashed
really
potatoes.
gross, actually.
I already eat cheese.
Oh.
Yeah, I can have cheese. I can have dairy.
How about you have a salad?
A salad. I don't know. Dave, are you still on with us? Or you got that worked out, Dave?
Me?
Yes, I can. Praise be to God. Good morning to you, Dave Palmer.
Sorry about that. I'm testing a new way of getting.
It's not working out, Dave. I'm sorry. We hear every other syllable. I don't know. Why is it that? Maybe it's because you're such a fan of St. Thomas Aquinas that the devil is having none of it, because it seems like we always have some audio problems, but we're only hearing about every other syllable from you, Dave. So maybe, how about this? Jump on your cell phone, call in via cell phone, and let's get you on that way, because we want to talk about what's on the agenda for Back to the Father today. It's coming up at 1 p.m. Central, 2 Eastern, all across the GRN social platforms, which you can find at GRN Online. So if you just search like on YouTube or Facebook at GRN Online, you do find it. And every single week, Dave Palmer, our friend, executive director of North Texas English Stations, hosts this show, and it really explores what St. Thomas Aquinas teaches. So at any rate, hopefully we'll get you on. Dave, let's try you one more time. Dave, are you there?
No, he hopped off. He's going to hop back on in a second.
Okay.
He was connecting via our Comrec system.
Wow.
We tested it yesterday to try it out. And
not working today.
Perfectly.
Not working.
And then we tried it today. Perfectly. Not working at all.
Dang it.
Is there a link with the Elon Musk? Is Elon to blame for... There we go. Good morning to you, Dave.
Yeah, good morning. Sorry about that, Joe. Yeah, like Adrian said, everything went great in dress rehearsal. I don't know what's happening this morning.
Well, so let's talk about being thankful. Thanksgiving is upon us, and I suppose Thomas Aquinas has something to say about this, too. What do you say, Dave?
He pretty much has something to say about everything in the Summa, you know? When you write 3,100 articles in the Summa, you're gonna write about thankfulness at some point. But he does actually have something to say about it. And there's two articles, I should say, in the Summa on thankfulness and also ingratitude.
Mm-hmm.
And I find it very interesting because they come under the section of the Summa on justice, where in the second part of the Summa, where he's talking about the four cardinal virtues, and it falls under justice. And in light of Thanksgiving coming up next week, I thought this would be a good topic to talk about.
Yeah, for sure. Thanksgiving. I always like to point out that the first Thanksgiving was not from the Puritans, but from the Catholics in Florida. Praise be to God. That's one of my to-do lists every single Thanksgiving, is to just remind the world we started it first. And then, of course, I like to make the Eucharistic reference, the Greek word Eucharistia, which is what we use to refer to the English word Eucharist, means thanksgiving. It has its roots in the Thanksgiving offering in the Old Testament, brought to its fulfillment in the Holy Mass. Praise be to God. But what is Thomas Aquinas' take in general on being thankful and Thanksgiving?
Well, I find the thing that I think is most interesting to me is that thankfulness and ingratitude he takes very seriously. In fact, in question 107 of the part I was talking about, which is on ingratitude, he says, is ingratitude always a sin? And he says, yes. Is it a special sin? Yes. And is it a mortal sin? And it can be a mortal sin if you're ungrateful. And I think, like, for those of us raising kids, I think if our kids, or us for that matter, are ungrateful, or we don't appreciate the things we have, we don't say thank you, we don't, pay people back for the favors that they give us, we think, well, it's just bad manners. It's probably a little, flaw in their character or something. But I think in reading this, what comes across is that thankfulness is absolutely necessary as a virtue, and ingratitude could actually potentially land you in hell, if it's taken to an extreme, and it's a sin. I mean, how often do you think, if your kid doesn't, again, not to just talk about the kids, but we want our kids to be grateful. But I think in reading this and studying it, you realize we really have to be. We have to be grateful. And if we're not, we're potentially sinning. It's the kind of thing that we need to go to confession for.
Is it possible? Okay, let me ask a question here. Is it possible? Could it be that Thomas Aquinas is talking about being grateful or thankful, have gratitude for the Lord and what he has done for us to save our souls, to give us life? Or are you actually thinking that Thomas Aquinas means this in every sense, even to our parents, our neighbors, our friends, or that stranger that's nice to us? Does he mean it for everyone? Because, like, mortal sin, that's huge.
Yeah, well, exactly, Joe, the perfect question, because that's the very first thing he mentions in Article 1 of this question 106. He says, is thankfulness a special virtue distinct from other virtues? And he says that the thankfulness that we owe to, he says, like our father, our parents, that's called piety. Okay, that's you're just grateful that they brought you into the world. And the thankfulness that we owe to God is called the virtue of religion. Okay, so he makes that distinction, saying it's a special virtue. It's not those. Okay, that's something else. Yes, of course we have to be thankful to God. We have to do worship to God, and of course, adore God and worship Him. But he's saying, no, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about towards other people.
So this kind of goes back to the virtue of justice, giving people what is due to them. We give God our adoration and worship because that's what's due to Him, which is why we have to go to Mass on Sunday at the very least, is to give God what we owe Him. But you're saying we're also obligated to give to our friends, our family, our neighbors, or even that perfect stranger who's nice to us, what is due to them, which is gratefulness.
Yeah, exactly. And he talks about benefactors. I mean, in our world, a benefactor is somebody that, supports the network or gives donations and that kind of thing. And of course, we owe them a lot of gratitude. But I think it's beyond just people who give us money or do things. I think he is talking about any favors that are given to somebody, not just money, but love or attention, and the necessity to give back. And in fact, one of the articles, he says whether one ought to pay back more than one has received? And he says yes. So not only do we pay him back, and it may not just be monetarily, we have to actually give more than what we received.
Wow.
And so he's pretty hardcore on this. It's like, you've got to be grateful.
Yeah.
And if you have ingratitude, it's always going to be a sin.
Now, perhaps Thomas Aquinas just wasn't aware of the kind of friends and family that I have. And maybe his opinion
it's in a footnote.
His opinion might be different had he known of the people that I'm dealing with. I mean, poor me, right?
Well, I tell you, I'm going to dig into all this today on our show, but that's actually comes up in an objection. Seriously, I mean, you're asking all the right questions here, because he says, what about people that don't deserve to be thanked? What about people, or like, what if you're not able to return a favor to somebody? What if somebody gives you money and you're not able to give them something back? And what if they're not deserving? What if they're horrible people? That exact objection does come up.
Wow. So we can't even claim laziness, forgetfulness, just like, oh, I meant to do that. Oh, shucks, darn it to bitsies. I meant to thank that person and never did. We can't even do that?
No, I don't think that's going to work. I'm sorry.
Yikes.
I wish it would.
Dave, this is a hard message. Who can hear it? Dave Palmer is the host of Back to the Father, and it's a live internet-based show. You can watch it on our YouTube channel. Go to GRN Online on YouTube to search for that. You'll find it. You can also find it on Facebook today as well. Every Friday, 1 p.m. Central, 2 Eastern, Back to the Father with Dave Palmer. God bless you, Dave. Thanks for hanging out with us today, and happy Thanksgiving to you, my brother.
All right, thanks, Joe. Appreciate it.
Time to play our Fear and Trembling game show. Call right now, 877-757-9424.
Why do Catholics call Mary the Queen of Heaven? Doesn't God rebuke the Israelites in the Old Testament for worshiping a false goddess called the Queen of Heaven? Should we not refer to Mary with that title, therefore, since it's a title of a false god?
In Jeremiah 7, verse 18, God is indeed upset with the Israelites for worshiping a false goddess called the Queen of Heaven. However, just because God rebuked them for worshiping the false Queen of Heaven doesn't mean that we cannot pay honor to the true Queen of Heaven, the Blessed Mother. That type of thinking would lead you to believe that just because people worship a false god that they call God, we therefore should not call the true God by that same name, God, because that's the same name the idolaters use for their God. That is faulty logic, and it makes no sense whatsoever. Again, the fact that there is a false Queen of Heaven does not lead to the conclusion that we worship a false goddess when we call Mary the Queen of Heaven. Just as the fact that there is a false god does not lead to the conclusion that we worship a false god when we call our Father in heaven God. And there is a true Queen of Heaven. We see this quite clearly in Revelation 12, verse 1. And a great portent appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and on her head a crown of 12 stars. Let's see. There's a woman. She's in heaven, and she has a crown on her head. I could be wrong, but I don't think that's the cleaning lady. No, it's the true Queen of Heaven, Mary, the mother of the male child who is to rule the nations. We do not worship Mary, we honor her just as Jesus honors her. So there is absolutely nothing wrong from a scriptural point of view in calling Mary the Queen of Heaven and in honoring her just as Jesus honors her. After all, if Jesus is the King, then Mary is truly the Queen Mother of Heaven.
A beacon of truth in a troubled world. This is the Guadalupe Radio Network, radio for your soul.
Welcome to another round of Fear and Trembling, the Catholic trivia game show that helps you work out your salvation by the seat of your pants. It's a 50-50 chance and prizes are involved. Avoid the weeping and gnashing of teeth. Call now to take your shot, 877-757-9424. And now, your host, Joe McClain.
Praise be to Jesus Christ. Welcome back to Catholic Drive Time and Fear and Trembling, a Catholic trivia game show with secrets and agendas that you can't tell anybody. But you do have to call if you want to play the game. And today we're giving out prizes, which means you should call now to get your chance to get those prizes. Praise be to God. 877-757-9424. That phone line is open and available to you. First caller gets to play the game at 877-757-9424. Call right now. Adrian Fonseca standing by to take your call at 877-757-9424. One more time, 877-757-9424 is the phone number. First caller gets to play the game. But there are, as I say, lots of things that we do on the down low, on the QT. We just don't want it to get out too far. So please keep it between us. But we want to teach the faith. We look for teachable moments in the questions where you might learn something you didn't know before. Praise be to God. It's a good thing to learn new things. And then, of course, we like to have a laugh, a chuckle, and our callers laugh with us. We enjoy that most, I would say. And then we give out prizes. And that makes it a winner for everybody. You see, everybody gets something out of the deal. You learn, you laugh, you could win. And today's the day you win. Now, we just had a caller on, but it dropped. So call back, 877-757-9424. That phone number is 877-757-9424. First caller gets to play the game. But here's the kicker. The secret sauce in all of this is we don't ask the callers the questions. They may not know a single correct answer, but could still win. And that's because instead of asking them, I shall ask Rudy and I shall ask Adrian, one of which will give us a correct answer. The other will give us an incorrect answer. And the caller will then have 15 seconds to make a decision. Whomst do they trust more, Rudy or Adrian? And every right answer at that point goes into the coffee cup of divine providence to win this week's prize. Looks like we're having some phone problems, though. I've seen 2 calls come in and 2 calls drop already. So hopefully we'll get that lined up. But, Rudy, what could they win?
Praise be to God. Today we are giving away yet another Every Sacred Sunday Mass Journal. This one is in a dusty blue color. It's got a beautiful cloth-bound, hardbound casing here. And this, just imagine yourself toting this beautiful journal into Mass, following along with the readings, jotting down all those wonderful inspirations you may receive in the Holy Sacrifice of the Mass, maybe in the readings, the homily. You're going to be growing in your interior life because this particular journal starts in Advent, which is just right around the corner, right after Thanksgiving, basically. So the kicker here is that you're going to be growing in your interior life. And the winner is going to get it today. This week's prize was generously sponsored by Gloria Lopez. Thank you so much, and God reward you, Gloria Lopez.
All right, Gloria Lopez, you're amazing. Praise be to God.
She is. She really is.
We really appreciate the opportunity to give stuff away, and you made that possible. So God bless you. All right. We are, I think we're working out the phone problems right now. We do have one on, but again, let me just take this opportunity just for a second to say, don't forget, get in on the CDT Insider email. I send you an email every Friday with some goodies. You can get the goodies in your inbox free of charge. All you got to do is go to grnonline.com/CDT, and you can sign up to the CDT Insider email list today. Let's go to the phones. Tom, good morning to you.
Good morning. How are you?
Praise be to God, Tom. I am alive, and that counts. How are you?
Me, alive as well.
See? It counts, right?
Is this Tom from MySpace?
Tom, no. Tom, where are you from?
I'm in San Antonio.
San Antonio, Texas. Tom, San Antonio is a great town. It's fantastic. It's famous, not just because I'm from there.
Oh, boy. Here we go.
It has other reasons for a claim to fame.
Yeah, it's got the Alamo.
Oh, yeah, the Alamo? I think I might have heard of that once. Praise be to God.
Yeah.
Of course I have. I was 10th grade history student of the year. Of course I've heard of the Alamo. Tom, where do you go to church?
I go to church at St. Bridget.
St. Bridget. Wow. Praise be to God. Well, Tom, we're excited you're here. Thanks for calling in today. Tom, do you know how the game works?
I do. I listen to you every day.
Praise God. Wow. Praise God.
Thanks.
Wise and astute.
I'm so sorry for your loss.
I can already hear the age-old wisdom coming from Tom's tone, so this is going to be a good show. Are you ready, Tom?
I am ready.
Let's do this. We're going to start with Rudy Carlos, who is, again, no tie. I'm seeing a trend. I'm noticing a trend here. Good morning to you, Rudy.
Good morning.
Are you ready?
I am ready.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I think so.
Are you rested?
Am I rested? No.
This ought to be interesting. Rudy, let's start with a history question, which is my particularly favorite kinds of questions. Can you help me understand, in what year did Pope Pius XII die?
Wow. Yeah. So some might say, I'm not going to make that joke. Well, he did die in 1958.
I see.
I was going to say, some might say we haven't had a pope since, but that would be impossible.
Yeah,
that doesn't make any sense, people.
Besides, he was assumed, wasn't he?
Was he?
No, I'm teasing. No. Okay, what year did he die?
1958.
Oh, very specific.
It was a good year.
Was it a good vintage? 1958? Okay.
I remember that year fondly. Of happy memory.
Adrian, expert in death, could you tell me, in what year did Pope Pius XII die, sir?
Well, as someone who identifies as a graduate of Duchesne High School and having being the 10th grade history championship of Duchesne High School.
What?
Yeah, that identifies that.
Blown.
So I know, it's pretty amazing. Everybody knows that Pope Pius XII died in 1973.
Really?
Yep.
That was the year before I was born.
I know it.
Missed it by that much.
Missed it by a hair.
Okay. All right, Tom.
Everyone who went to Duchesne High School knows it.
Tom in San Antonio, Texas. Praise be to God. Can you tell me, in what year did Pope Pius XII die? Was it, as Adrian says, 1973, or was it in 1958, as Rudy seems to suggest? 15 seconds on the clock. Who's right, who's wrong? Tom, what say you?
He seems to suggest. So he's not suggesting it. I guess I'm going to have to go. With what's that other guy's name? Adrian.
Don't. I'm so sorry.
I keep trying to tell everybody, Joe is the tricky one here.
No.
Joe is the tricky one.
What's his name?
The correct answer is 1958. Rudy did have the right answer on that.
And 1973 was
not
Paul
a good year because it was the year before I was born.
It's the year Paul VI was reigning.
Yeah, there you go. But don't worry, Tom, we got you covered.
Paul.
We got you covered. Let's go to the second question here with Adrian. Adrian, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Can you tell me what is the privilege granted to persons in holy orders to be tried in the diocesan court rather than civil court, except in cases of treason or arson? Was that complicated or pretty straightforward?
Oh, that was so straightforward.
Okay.
Well, this is something that unfortunately they don't have anymore, and the privilege granted to persons in holy orders to be tried in the diocesan court rather than in civil court, except in cases of treason or arson.
Yeah.
It's called the benefit of clergy.
The benefit of clergy.
Yep.
Pretty straightforward. Pretty straightforward. All right, Rudy, maybe you can help here. I wonder what you will say. Could you tell me what is the privilege granted to persons in holy orders to be tried in the diocesan court rather than in civil court, except in cases of treason or arson? What do we call that?
The diocesan court. Yeah. Well, they used to call that the pontifical shuffle.
Really?
Yeah.
The pontifical shuffle.
Yep.
Did they?
Now, if you didn't win the shuffle, you would get milstinated. So
really?
That's the thing. They got rid of it. It was too inhumane. They said, you know what?
9
We're going to take it away.
27 times, you don't want to be milstinated.
Definitely not.
Okay.
Especially
All right,
in the Mariana Trench.
Tom, you got choices.
9 out of 27. Are good odds.
Is it the pontifical shuffle, as Rudy would like us to believe, or the benefit of clergy, as Adrian is suggesting? 15 seconds, Tom. What say you?
I will go with the right answer. I don't know about the guy, but I'm going to go with Adrian.
What?
I don't know if Tom.
I thought you said you listened every day.
I'm not sure if Tom gets the benefits of going with Adrian. I don't think he gets the benefits with all the hedging he's doing over there.
Wow.
I don't think he gets younger. I don't think he gets more attractive. I don't think that happens.
It's the benefit of the clergy was the correct answer. Well done. It was surprisingly not the pontifical shuffle. Who saw that coming? I don't know. But let's get the third question in really quickly here. Back to Rudy. Rudy, can you tell me where was the first Mass said in America? Or some would say the first Thanksgiving.
The first Mass in America. That would be St. Augustine, Florida. Or, depending on who you ask, they might say St. Augustine, Florida.
I see. St. Augustine. I like that. But let's get a second opinion here. Adrian, I know you are an expert in Thanksgiving things. Could you tell me, what is the first Mass said in America?
Yes, the first Mass said in America was on Plymouth Rock.
What?
Amen.
Are you being serious?
I am serious.
Wow.
It's a relic.
Okay. Tom, was it Plymouth Rock, as Adrian says, or St. Augustine, as Rudy says? 15 seconds, Tom. What say you, sir?
Well, tell me which one is wrong first.
Oh, that's easy. It would just be... Wait, hold on.
I'm gonna go with Adrian again.
Oh, Tom!
Oh.
I'd love to take responsibility, but I feel like I warned you about Adrian already.
I'm telling you, he's a tricky one.
Oh my goodness!
I heard the warning about
Tom.
Rudy.
You're the winner, brother. Let's go! Wow!
You got
Tom,
one right.
what in the world?
And you still pulled it off.
That
You
never
are the winner.
happens.
Now you have to journal, Tom. I don't know if you're a journaler, but now you're going to have to journal.
Tom, I hope you have a wife, because this is not for men.
I don't have a wife, but I know somebody who does journal, and she would absolutely love it.
Oh,
getting ready for Christmas gift right there.
Well, Tom, thanks for having a good time with us today and rolling with the punches. God bless you, Tom. Stay on hold, but have a great day and enjoy San Antonio traffic.
Yeah, I'm in it now. Thanks,
God
guys.
love you. We'll see you in the after
Thank you for joining us
show.
on Your Catholic Drive Time, where it is our pleasure to keep you informed and inspired.
Join us Monday through Friday at the same time, right here on your favorite Catholic radio station.
Don't forget to connect with us. Just go to facebook.com/Catholic Drive Time.
Again, that's facebook.com/Catholic Drive Time.
Be sure to share more than just us today. Share Jesus with everyone you meet.
Bye now, and God love you.
Welcome to the after show. Welcome
where
to
we
the after
give benefit
show.
to clergy. Where we, since they're not getting it from the government anymore.
Yeah. Good times. Good times. Hey, listen, do us a favor. If you're new here, let us know that so we can recognize you and give you your proper due. And if you've never commented before, do tell us where you're from. It means a lot to us that you are here, so thank you for doing it. But we are live streaming on several platforms, so we try to watch several at the same time. And I would love to say we watch Twitter, but the reality is Twitter's absolutely dead. I mean, if I'm on Twitter right now, I'm seeing that Twitter dying and dead is trending on Twitter. So clearly must be true.
Amy says, welcome to the show, Amy. Amy said she's here from watching Return to Tradition. And so, welcome. Welcome to the show.
Why do you do that to people?
Well, because
it's not fair.
I mean, Jesus is her friend now. Mm-hmm. I know it. Mm-hmm. She asks, arson? Really? Yes. And the reason why arson, you're like, so you have the two exceptions are arson and treason. Treason, okay, I see. You're betraying your country, so then the government's going to punish you. But arson? Well, the reason is because back then they didn't have the fire department the way they do today. And so arson, if you lit a building on fire, you very well easily could have burned down the entire city by lighting one thing on fire. Really? So it was a huge deal. It was a crime against the entire city. Or entire country, really. Yeah. Like, even think about America not that long ago, the Great Chicago Fire. Yeah. And then we talked about Our Lady of Good Help, the burning down of that city. So fires were a big deal.
A big deal.
Yeah.
Every citizen was expected to be a firefighter, actually. Mm-hmm. You had a bucket. You kept your bucket near your door. And if the fire alarm went off, you grabbed your bucket and you went running for the bucket brigade. That was beautifully depicted in a series that HBO produced years ago on John Adams. The opening scenes were of him getting ready for the Boston Massacre. And there was a fire alarm that went off, and he went out, or he thought it was the fire alarm. He thought it was a fire, and so he goes out with his bucket to join the bucket brigade, only to discover it was something completely different.
I don't know what that means.
I was referencing the bucket brigade in film. In film.
Sure,
beautifully
you are.
It was a great show. It was a great series. If you've not watched John Adams, let me recommend you do so. It was well acted. I really enjoyed it personally. And as 10th grade student history of the year, obviously my opinion
talking about me.
of the matter has weight. It has what we say in French, gravitas.
Right.
Is that even French?
French. No, that's Latin.
Latin.
He noticed he was the history champion, not the Latinist.
And it's history student of the year. It's not champion.
Sorry, my mistake. My mistake.
Yeah.
Well, it's crazy that you have that because I was also that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Just mind blowing.
I mean, I was the 10th grade history student of the year. Starting today.
Starting at this very moment.
Yeah. I identified that way.
Yeah. Praise be to God.
So here's the thing. I think I talked about this. No, I didn't. I didn't talk about it on air. I talked about it after the show. California is doing this thing. I think in San Francisco is giving away free money. It's like $1,800 to people who identify in the LGBT spectrum. Mm-hmm. And they have up to 95 different options that you could choose from. And I was like, dude, if I was in San Francisco, what if I just clicked one of those? And because some of them are
they're gonna check your social feed.
But one of the I think it's called. I had this thing where I wanted to know the LGBT ideology better than the LGBT people, and so I dove deep and started reading all their materials for a while, and I can't remember anymore. But there's a gender that you can identify as that basically means you're only attracted to people that you have an emotional connection with.
Okay.
And I'm like, what? Oh, well,
what level
that's
of
fine.
logic is this?
I was like, that's fine. And so I'm like, I identify as that. So I was like, I could just click that and then take the $1,800. But one of them that's listed, and this is just a quote. I'm not saying it. This is literally just something that was listed there. And I'm like, wait a second. Are they allowed to say that? So one of them on there was faggot. You can identify that way. And as one of the options, one of the 95 options that you can identify as and receive $1,800.
That's crazy.
So
Brooks Durham says, free money to them? I am feeling a little festive right now.
Hey, Dan is commenting for the first time from San Antonio. Thanks, Dan.
What's the weather like out there?
Welcome to the show, Dan.
Not humid. Dan, welcome to the team. God bless you. Thanks for hanging out with us. We appreciate it.
Pretty dry out here, too.
Dan started a new job in the United States Air Force back in 2020. What, Dan? Thanks for your service, brother. We appreciate it. Someone's got to serve in the Air Force. You know what I'm saying? Enjoy all that fancy food, fantastic house.
I was waiting for you to make a
5-star
joke.
luxury housing.
Here it comes.
Yeah, I'm just thanking Dan for his service.
Mm-hmm.
That's all. No big deal. No big deal. Chauffeured back and forth from the barracks, probably.
Nancy asks, can you guys talk about Thanksgiving or any good resources for me? Mm-hmm. Yes, and yes, and yes. There's 3 yeses, even though you asked 2 questions.
Next question, please.
1, yeah, we can talk about it. I'll let Joe lead the conversation in a second.
You're talking about best food, best side, how to properly brine a turkey,
best saeta.
The second thing of any good resources for you, I highly recommend. I did a video on Thanksgiving last year, and I talk about the Thanksgiving in general. But then the more important thing is I talk about the turkey indult that everybody has a debate about every year. So I talk about that, and then we were actually recording a video with my professor, Dr. Rebard, today that'll air on Thanksgiving Day, talking about gratitude. And it's going to be kind of like the conversation that Dave Palmer's having at 1 o'clock on his show. But we're going to have a more extended conversation about gratitude. So that'd be interesting. So we're recording that today. It's going to air on Thanksgiving Day. So yeah. And then, let us know what specifically about Thanksgiving do you want to talk about? But yeah, I highly recommend my video on Thanksgiving just because there's a hot debate about the turkey indult. And I found the old newspapers from that year and I pulled them up and read them to everybody and showed how the turkey indult is not real. It didn't happen. And for those who don't know, the turkey indult was the idea that the day after Thanksgiving, you can eat meat. And that's not true. So that's the idea was Pius XII gave permission that you could eat meat the day after. The closest thing I could find to that being true was that allegedly It was said one time for 1 year. It was not perpetual. But even that is not likely to have even been the case. So I talk about that in the video. Check it out. So anyway, Turkey, Thanksgiving. What do y'all want to know? What do y'all want to talk about? Joe, what are you going to do for Thanksgiving if you can't eat most of the things? Just going to have some turkey and some ham, or what's the plan?
Well, you're at the end of your ride, no?
Step one. No, actually not. Step one, feed the turkey mashed potatoes and pure sugar. Step two, eat only turkey. Done. Done. I'm still carnivore. See how that works? Yeah.
Interesting.
So, yeah, I can't. I'm going to have only the turkey, the ham, probably some deer meat this year because we just got 50 pounds of deer meat in the fridge. Yes. So good. It's so good. Can't wait. Otherwise,
you bring that for us?
Yeah, it's coming. Just,
I keep hearing that.
Just wait.
I keep hearing about this.
If you haven't seen it yet, just keep waiting. It'll be.
I'm waiting. Don't worry.
It's in the mail.
Okay.
I tell you what, we're going to have to do is we're going to have to go to Rudy Carlos's brand new rich Catholic guy pad in his backyard of luxury, the lifestyle of the rich and famous.
Oh my goodness.
Good grief. Like your
It's not that
backyard,
big,
your
man.
backyard patio is bigger than my whole house.
No, it isn't. Come on.
It's huge. It's huge. You got the nicest ceiling fan in your backyard.
By the way, that one doesn't work.
I don't even have, like, it's nicer than all of my internal ceiling fans. Your backyard one is nice. Like,
I can't figure out how to get it to work.
how do you live with your opulence at night?
There's a remote for it. That's how it works. I was like, man, why doesn't this thing turn on?
Hey, Rick, good morning to you from Buffalo. Luz and Tammy, Nick the Mike, Mike K, our friend from Virginia, the Brick Wall. Damon is on. I see Josh Patterson. And praise be to God for it, too. Of course, Peter is on. Peter said he needs prayers. His father-in-law needs to get a job. They have economic circumstances that need to be addressed. So we're going to be praying for that situation for sure. Also, I think I saw Jane. Was it Jane?
Jane
said her mom is sick. I think it was Jane said her mom is sick. We need to be praying for her mom as well. So her name is Martha. Please pray for Martha. Pray for Peter's father-in-law as well. And whatever other prayer intentions you have, you can always leave them in the comments. We'll certainly keep those in our prayers as well. Joe is bringing deer jerky to y'all on Friday.
I'll take it. I'll just save it for tomorrow.
That is news to me. I did not get that.
Thanks,
memo.
Joe.
You know what?
Appreciate it.
I'm just going to go
Jeff?
to Buc-ee's, man.
You betcha, Bo. So when I go to, okay, step one, don't tell my wife what I'm about to share with you. You can't. Don't mention this to my wife, Michelle.
Mrs. McLean, turn the radio off.
Don't
right now.
tell Michelle.
She doesn't listen.
What I'm about to. Exactly. So you can't tell her. All right. But when I go to Buc-ee's, right, I get the venison sausage link.
They're pretty good.
So good.
Yeah, they're pretty good.
So
Venison
good.
sausage.
I usually get the venison
Clarissa,
and
good
some
morning.
cheese
Nancy,
and eat them
good morning.
together.
Oh,
so good.
Man.
The only thing that's good at Buc-ee's is a chopped brisket.
No.
Oh, man, it's so good.
Yeah, that is good.
It is good, but it's not the only thing that's good.
Mm-hmm.
The fudge is good.
The candied
the
nuts.
Thanks for reminding me.
Candied
I need to
nuts.
feed the turkey the fudge as well.
Right.
I need to make sure that the turkey's having lots of fudge.
What the fudge, man?
Hey, speaking of fudge, Polachicho says, I have a doctorate in Adrianology.
Yes. That degree is becoming more and more popular every year.
That's why you had to take a weekend job as a DJ.
Nicole, did you guys read Nicole Marie's comment? I have every Sacred Sunday journal just arrived last week. It's fantastic.
It is a very beautiful journal. Very nice stuff. Gloria Lopez, if you're listening, thank you. God reward you.
Yeah.
The Nancy said, no, I already read that comment. Paul says, can we eat lab-grown meat on Friday?
It's penance.
That's a good question, actually, though.
I don't know. I saw a headline that said they were feeding lab-grown meat to people at the UN. Like there was a meeting or something like that, and they,
unbeknownst to them, or
yeah, I think so.
That sucks.
Yeah,
that really
that's
sucks.
horrible. There was an article though I forgot about from the SSPX.
Yeah,
where someone asked about eating. What was it? was it like tofu or was it?
No, they're asking
fake meat,
impossible
Beyond Meat. Impossible meat. They said, is it illicit to eat Impossible meat on Fridays? And they said, I have to go pull it up because it was hilarious. They're basically like, it's an abomination against God, but you can eat it on Fridays.
I mean, there's a lot of things you can eat. The question is, should you?
So here it is.
Yeah.
Should Catholics consume artificial meat on abstinent days? The simple answer to the question, whether or not Catholics may illicitly consume artificial meat products on abstinent days, is yes. Soy chorizo, despite being an abomination in the eyes of the Lord, contains as much swine as a bowl of full kale.
Yikes.
Historically, the line between animals are meat, which is forbidden, which are seafood, which is permitted, was not always clear. 17th century, yada, yada, yada. Anyways, it goes on from there. But the answer, it literally says, yes, soy chorizo, despite being an abomination in the eyes of the Lord, contains as much swine as a bowl full of kale. Yikes. That is so good. That is hilarious.
Yikes.
So I used to have a coworker back in the studio that I worked at, and her dad was a food scientist, and she happened to be a vegan and actually a Catholic as well. So pray for her. I don't know where she is in her faith journey, but she told me that her dad told her, don't ever eat any of that fake stuff. It's really bad. They have all kinds of different preservatives in it. It's a bunch of like really weird stuff. You don't want to eat it. So she told me that, and I took that as some insider baseball. I'll never ever eat that stuff.
Wow.
She didn't either, surprisingly, even though she was a vegan.
No kidding.
I mean, it's horrible for you. If you're being a vegan for health reasons, doing it, eating Impossible meat is horrible. But a lot of people do it because they're like, oh, the animals.
She's a vegan because of animals. I was like, dude, come on.
It's over, dude.
Come on.
It's over.
It's over.
Grow up a little bit.
Hey, what do you guys think about that prominent Catholic YouTuber converting to the Catholic, or prominent Protestant YouTuber?
Oh, you're becoming Catholic?
Converting.
Oh, wait, you said prominent.
Freudian slip, I guess. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I lied all in the same sentence. Prominent. Let me read this. Prominent protest YouTube. Protestant. It's talking about Cameron Batuzzi. It's done. Hey, listen. I guess it's Friday and I'm done here. But prominent Protestant YouTuber Cameron Batuzzi has announced his decision to become Catholic. Did I read it right this time?
Yes.
Praise be to God.
I love Cameron Batuzzi.
Do you?
Yeah, I listen to him all the time. In fact, I tried to book him onto our show a long time ago.
And he was like, yeah, I only go on shows with audiences.
No. What happened was I pitched it to Joe, and Joe...
What did I say?
This was back in
Classic. Like the early days?
The early days.
Oh, okay.
And Joe said, no, I only want Catholics on the show. We're only going to book Catholics.
Yeah, that didn't work out.
If any topic that we could talk about, we could find a Catholic to talk about it. And so
true.
So I didn't get.
What were we going to talk to him about?
We're going to talk to him. I can't remember, dude. That was a long time ago.
You're 24,
dude. That was.
You're not my age. You can remember a long time ago.
A single detail from a year ago.
Yes.
No, I can't remember.
This is ridiculous.
I can't remember what the topic was.
What's the point being 24 if you can't just remember things?
I've been watching Cameron Batuzzi for 2 years now. And,
so you're happy about this?
And I'm very happy about this. I've watched his journey to becoming Catholic for a while now, and I'm fine. I'm so glad it finally happened.
Guess what? Now we can have him on the show.
Yay! Now that he literally everybody's going to be trying to book him,
and he definitely won't be coming.
He definitely won't be coming on.
Nah, he can come in after we get Shia LaBeouf.
Right.
Shia LaBeouf has priority.
Stop waves.
Stop waves,
dude.
But no, Cameron Batuzzi, his videos, I cannot recommend it enough. It's called Capturing Christianity, is the name of his YouTube channel. And he started the show in order to like combat atheism. So it's like mere Christianity, C.S. Lewis type stuff. And he's got really into, so if you're into like the atheism question, the atheism debates, he has the best stuff defending mere Christianity, defending against atheism, proofs of the risen Lord, all these things, excellent stuff. But then while he was converting, he wanted to interview all these top Catholics, and so he was interviewing theologians, historians on both sides, Protestant and Catholic, talking about questions of sola scriptura, talking about the papacy. He had tons of videos, excellent stuff on the papacy, and he had the best Protestant scholars trying to talk him out of it. And so it's worth the watching. I hope he makes like a playlist of all his videos on that topic, because that will be a huge aid on people's conversions, I think.
Wow. Unfortunately, Twitter is dead, and so I
tweeted that out later.
Definitely not seeing tweets on Twitter at the moment. But here's a tweet that I just saw: Kyle Rittenhouse is going to run for Congress in 5 years.
Based.
What?
President? President Rittenhouse?
Amazing. Interesting, for sure. Yeah, I'm happy for our Protestant friend who's now becoming Catholic. Good for him. Praise God. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Welcome home.
Hopefully he brings a big audience with him.
Yeah. And then share it with us. That'd be amazing. Can I just go back to, speaking of which, I just want to go back to thank Anthony Stein today. I mean, truly, honestly, giving us a shout out on his show this morning, that was surprising and a blessing. And I'm very grateful for it. So if you're still watching, Dr. Stein, thank you. God love you. I appreciate it. But the other thing I have to say is, you know what? Thanks to you, I can only eat meat now. Appreciate it. Yeah, thanks. With Thanksgiving coming up next week.
There you go. There you go.
Tammy says, at Joe, I think I'm going to need to go to confession for this, but for his age, Adrian is more grounded than a lot of youngins in their 20s that I know of. I like that you started that with, I think I have to go to confession. Very astute, Tammy. Very wise. But you're probably right.
She's right. She is wise.
Uh-huh.
For saying that.
No, for the
I'm very
confession
grounded.
part?
Oh,
wait, what?
That's what you meant.
Sorry.
Oh, I see. Gosu, G-O-S-U, I don't know how to pronounce that, said, I tuned in after watching Anthony's video this morning. Well, welcome to the show.
Welcome to the team.
Welcome to the show. Let us know where you're from.
I also got a text last night from my friend, Mary, and a couple of other people also pointed this out, that a clip of our show was played on Church Militant's news. They have, like, what do they call it? Like the news, it's not news nightly.
News.
That's evening news.
Evening
Thank
news,
you.
yeah.
I kept wanting to call it news nightly. That's EWTN. Evening news. They played a clip from our commentary. I think it was yesterday, actually. The 6:15 commentary in the first hour.
And they said, Joe is the coolest guy ever.
They didn't say that, but nonetheless,
that's right, I heard.
When they sent that, I was like, oh, really? So I think it's like the third time they've done that. But so thank you, Church Militant. We appreciate you spreading the word about our show. We really appreciate that, too. Thank you. Susan Weber, I think lab-grown meat at the UN is justice. Okay.
Victor Mendoza said, I'm also waiting for Gospel Simplicity to convert. Yeah.
I was going to bring them up, actually.
Gospel Simplicity, and the same thing with 10-Minute Bible Hour. Those guys,
yes, I was going to bring that one up.
I highly doubt they're going to convert. And 10-Minute Bible Hour.
Gospel Simplicity seems to be on the spectrum there.
So here's my analysis, and because I followed Gospel Simplicity pretty closely as well. I didn't follow 10-Minute Bible Hour as much. He basically, 10-Minute Bible Hour guy was like, I don't really care about the differences between the different. He's fallen into Christian indifferentism basically, whereas the Gospel Simplicity guy, he basically said, look, I'm looking into it, but I have other things that I find to be more important too that I'm doing, so I'm not going to look into it that hard. And my wife's not into this at all, and so I'm not going to worry about it. So if he does convert, it's going to be a much longer journey. However, praise be to God if he does. Let's pray for his conversion. But I'm not as confident, whereas Cameron Batuzzi, he straight up said, and I think it has to do with a lot of his debates with atheists. He's always pulling up like logical proofs and talking about how epistemological arguments, saying like, okay, well, if you can't prove something 100%, but at a certain point, there's enough proof that you have to just take the leap and join. So I can't prove 100% that God exists, but I can give you so much evidence that it would be absurd for you to not accept it. And so that's kind of the way his mind was working when he was doing it. And so he was like, I'm not 100% convinced of the Catholic Church, but I'm convinced enough that I'm going to take the leap and say, and I'm going to convert, and then I'm just going to accept it as true. So that's kind of the way I saw it happen. It's interesting because he was what's called a Bonesian. I forget the terminology. It's a term in logic where you're basically adding up, you're tallying up the weight of different proofs to find if something is more or less likely. And basically that's what he was doing to try to do it. And so he was very logical about it. So I knew he was going to cross the Tiber. And then Matt Fradd paid for him to fly to Rome so he could literally cross the Tiber as a meme.
Literally.
Yeah, so he literally walked across the Tiber.
That's baller. God love him.
When you have that kind of money.
Yeah.
Oh, man, I would love to do that.
And I actually have crossed the Tiber now that I think about it. I had never thought about it until you just said it. I physically walked across the Tiber.
Nice.
That is cool.
I would love to do that.
Bridget Dunn says I was a vegan for 7 years until I went to Texas. It was all over after that. Yeah, buddy. For sure. Victor says, it's probably been more than a year since I watched a video from Cameron and Gospel Simplicity.
Yeah, I highly recommend to anybody to watch Cameron Batuzzi's his videos on Mere Christianity, and just all his stuff is really good. Gospel Simplicity, it was interesting when he was interviewing all these Catholics because it was just interesting. But otherwise, his material is kind of dull to me. Whereas even if Cameron Batuzzi never became Catholic and he stopped talking about Catholic things, I probably would still watch his stuff because his stuff on against atheism and stuff like that is very fascinating. Whereas if you go to Gospel Simplicity stuff, he's like, is a theology degree worth it? Okay, dude, whatever. Want to read the Bible? Read Lord of the Rings. I guess if you're into that, okay. What can Christians learn from Lord of the Rings? And so he's doing all these things. Protestant Reviews, Jack Chick Track. So he's talking about these kind of things. I don't know. It doesn't interest me that much, to be honest. But I'm happy other people get things out of it. So
yeah, praise be to God. Coming up, by the way, before I forget, we're down to the wire here. Dr. Paul Kingore is going to be back on the program next week. He's going to be on for Wednesday. We're going to be talking about Belladad again. We had a great conversation with him this week. I'll include that in our CDT Insider email today. Really good conversation. I love this book that he's coming out, The Devil and Belladad, which dropped yesterday. And so grateful he was on our program. So we've invited him back. He's going to be back, and we're going to talk specifically about Fulton Sheen getting involved in Belladad's life and why. The big fundamental question, again, is why would he prevent her from releasing names of complicit clergy? And then if he didn't allow her to have the names released, then was he doing something behind the scenes about it? Was he using this information that he was now aware of to combat this behind the scenes? Is there any evidence to that? We all know that he spoke quite a bit about communism. He wrote books on the matter, spoke publicly on the matter, public audience, a huge audience. And the communists certainly didn't like him. We know that much. But did he do any more? I want to ask those questions with Dr. Paul Kingore next week on Wednesday. Eric Sammons is going to be on Monday. We'll talk about the FTX debacle. Some are saying that the FTX was a storefront for the globalists to destroy crypto and to instill digital currency. Could it be true? I don't know. Let's see what Eric Sammons has to say on the matter. He'll be on Tuesday. And then Monday, we're trying to line up somebody to get a better insight into what's going down in Brazil. There's massive protests down there in Brazil post-election. I mean, like huge audiences are showing up. Also, Iran is still a thing, by the way.
Who?
Iran.
What?
They just burned down like one of the revolutionary founders' houses. There's big things happening in Iran still, and it's kind of dropped off the radar quite a bit. So we're going to try to cover some of those stories next week. Amy, WC, by the way, thanks for being on with us today. We appreciate it. We do appreciate it. Paul and Paulina, good morning to you. Thanks for hanging out. Brooks and Nancy and Bridget Dunn and White Wolf was in the house. Praise be to Jesus. Thanks for that.
White Wolf in the house.
White Wolf in the house. Joe is going to be the big show now. Anthony Stein today, Church Militant. Last night, Adrian is as the new host of CDT.
Joe wishes.
Where's the lie?
Joe's punishment is he has to stay here.
That's on the new mug. You got to stay. You got to hang out. Let's see. Craig, welcome. Good
Craig's
morning.
Brilliant.
What does he say?
You should read it.
I have to read this?
Mm-hmm. You have to read it.
Craig says, can we just spend the rest of the show talking about Adrian? He's so dreamy. Let's sing.
Let's sigh.
Let's sigh.
Sigh. So true, Craig. I can confirm.
He's so
Adrian is so dreamy.
I don't know what triggered Craig to mention that you're dreamy, but I don't want to know either.
It's a well-known fact. I don't know. It doesn't require anything to trigger it. Everybody knows.
Okay. Otherwise, it's going to be a great weekend, praise be to God. It's going to be a busy weekend. I don't know what else is going on around the world.
Victor wants to know if there's going to be a Back to the Father today. Yes, there will be.
1 p.m.
1 p.m. Tune in. He wasn't on last week. Pray for him.
Mm-hmm.
I think I can say this because he posted it on Facebook. His stepfather passed away, and so that's why he wasn't. He canceled the show at the last second, so he didn't announce it because it happened last second. So he announced it on Facebook. But yeah, so pray for his father's soul or his stepfather's soul. But yeah, he'll be on today.
I remember what we were going to do now. We were also trying to get Flanders on to comment on the recent elections, so to speak, at the USCCB of Broglio.
That's right.
And Burbage to get some commentary and insight analysis on that.
He said, nah, fam.
He said what?
Nah, fam.
Gesundheit? God bless you. I'm sorry, what did he say?
He said, nah, cat.
Nah, no cap.
I ain't pulling up.
Is that what he said?
Mm-hmm.
I tank gonna happen?
As a direct quote from Timothy Flanders.
A direct quote. Yeah, Victor, there's truth in this. Joe's gonna be 90 and still be the host.
True.
Dang.
So true.
It's like the mob. You can't get out.
His
Once you're in, you can't get out.
Is he has to stay.
Well, hopefully we can get T.S. Flanders on the hook. It'd be good to have him on. Praise be to God. Let's pray and hope that happens. Anyway, Rudy, you're awfully quiet over there, buddy. Got nothing to add today.
He's dreaming about his house.
Mm-hmm. Dreaming of what I have to do.
You should see his baller fireplace. Woo! Man, it goes well with his baller back porch.
Jesus just made Craig the official vice president of the Adrian fan club. Welcome, Craig.
Father Mateague. Yeah, we'd love to get him on.
It's been a while. We had him on once, right?
Did we have to pre-record that?
Nope. He came on live.
Well, maybe we can try to wrangle him up one more time. We'll see.
We got a lot of pre-records coming up for December.
That's right. Thanksgiving is next week, so we're going to get Father Rebard.
Father Rebard, yes.
He's not a father at all. He's only a doctor. Dr. Rebard.
Yeah.
And then there was what was her name?
Alexandria.
Oh, you got the name.
Yeah. I like Joe's face. He was like, I got him. I looked it up.
All right. Have a great weekend, everybody. It's time for more coffee, apparently. God love you. God bless you. We'll see you on Monday.
Jesus is a friend of mine. Jesus is my friend. Jesus is a friend of mine. I have a friend in Jesus. Don't do it, it won't get done. If God don't do it, it won't get done. What up with that? What up with that?
Man, what are we talking about? Come on, man.
Go, Brandon. I agree. Hey.
Yo,